Hi, Cox. How's now? This topic has arose probably last week ago, and it's still fresh in my mind. So I wanted to talk about it before. Just please bear in mind. I think just listen to my voice. That will be the most important content. We spoke to many Africans out there who migrants or looking their news back in their hometown. What they've realized is China has been successfully um, established in Africa, countries in Africa. Now, the Western media has painted as colonialism, modern day. I'm not saying what's good or what's bad. There's also good side. There's also bad side, and it's not only just Africa, but it's surprisingly Africa. But Southeast Asia, there's a bit of assimilation, things like that, where now China is going really good in Cambodia and parts of Southeast Asia. But let's focus on the topic of countries in Africa. Now, when I spoke to this worker, he's from Ghana, Ghanese. Anywho, not offend anyone, but he wants to know. He's like, man, your people in my country is getting so successful nowadays. And also tourism is very successful, where a lot of Chinese people are now going to countries in Africa more than ever than the Western countries now because of there's a good bond relationship, and also there's difference where the culture is nature, rich resources, and as well with safari, like. First, let's look at the history. The Dutch, the British, the French, what they did in the past has shed blood or tears or kidnap or buy African people into slave, destroy tribes or whatever. When they repay, and now colonialism, and once these countries fight independency, or some of them are not, when the British or the Dutch or the French give annually, regardless of foreign aid or money, it never went great. What Western world did is promote this whole charity, community development, but you never hear much about businesses wise. When you think about certain countries in Africa, you think about kids, hunger, poverty. That is the image that you get. But not all African countries are all like that. And I'm pretty sure there's metropolitan, and I'm pretty sure there's rural and there's country. And obviously, poverty rates are, you can say high or low, as depending on the certain country. I'm not just speaking away about it. What when I had a South Sudanese friend, he told me how a white fella came to Africa. It was a wide spread of welcomeness with the community. And what this white gentleman did was study the culture and everything. And later on, he brought the ships, the boats, the navies, the soldiers to conquer, shed blood and tears, and finding out what's the resources. What the Western world didn't build anything. Even though they give money to them, poor money, or try to trade export, we don't hear much positive stories out of it. People think there's corruption, the government gets the money and put it in their back pocket, X, Y, and Z. All right? Yada, yada, yada. What China did is, especially in the modern world, you have to understand there's going to be two money you're going to coming out of foreign aid or China money. The foreign aid or first world countries money is that you have to fix. There's a condition when they give you money. You have to fix your human rights. For example, homosexuality, disability, and all the other, etc., etc. Many Western world has all the services, has many of the Western world has opened the idea of homosexuality, same-sex marriage, X, Y, and Z. But if you don't not follow it, then they name, they shame your country, and you're always down below. And many third world countries have seen that, and you know, surprisingly, they have to change up, and pretty much, you have to destroy your culture, tradition by following the human rights. I'm not saying human rights is all bad. I'm just saying like if the culture has been forced marriage or you married young woman or have multiple wives or whatever it is, that's their culture, that's their history. Now obviously in the Western and human right lens, that is unacceptable. That's exploiting, that's patriarchal, that's very, very tribalism. Basically what human rights is doing is destroying all the tribalism and be civilized, right? That's why you have that. Now, the Chinese social credit is China is very, very tribal. There's no good deed. There's always bad deed. There's always corruption. So to introduce the social credit is enabled to dismantle certain tribalism which the government does not feud. Where a lot of Chinese who travel around the world, they get the bad name where they have they're breaking the social norms. The way how they do things is very terrible. Now, when I went to China, I get to see all that, and that's the norm in China. All right, you got to fit in every single norm, wherever you go. If you go to Japan, you got to learn how to bow to the elders, and you know how to shake. This that. You got to respect. But you have there you go. I've explained there's two types of authoritarian. One is the human rights, or the another one is, which I didn't explain too much, is more of authoritarian based on the country, what they wanted in the country. So it's like pretty much freedom or whatever they want. Like regardless you call it as a dictatorship, or regardless you call them a prime minister, or regardless you call them presidents, who thinks what's suitable for the people and the culture tradition. Now, one of the countries who jump on board this social credit like is Venezuela. Now, many third world countries will jump on board with the China model. Now, the Western world will jump on it, but they can get to choose human rights or the regime right. The same as Venezuela, it's up to them as well. And there's going to be two outcomes. And the tribalism is a natural form of way of closer to our human nature. You know, when you look at advertisements now, staring at a girl on a train. This is Victoria TV advertisement. That's pretty much a sexual assault. Well, if there's a lot of people on a train and I'm looking one facing one direction, how would they know I'm looking at the girl or the guy or the kids or the elders? I'm looking at everyone. But in that video, it's specifically targeting towards to a girl to make them feel uncomfortable and things like that. Now, I know for the fact that university with the sexual assault surveys, which is mandatory in some universities, some of the questions are very, very designed for you to say yes. Has someone has looked towards you uncomfortably on the train? It could be anyone. It can't. It's just not only just university students, but it can be anyone. That question. Anywho, let's focus on this topic. What also China did really well in understanding the how the behavior, the norm, and the culture of countries in Africa is that China is also has 52 ethnics, so you can call them 52 different tribes. And in China, there's more than 52 languages. There's a lot of dialects, and it's very complex. Everyone speaks different. The way how they eat is different. The way how the belief is different, and etc. But we speak one main language, which is Mandarin. Same as countries in in India. Hindu is it Hindu is a language, but Hindu is is the main language where there's a lot of more tribe and different languages, etc. So it's a pretty much the same concept. Now, me telling you this is like saying, okay, come on, what's more? What are you going to tell me more? Okay. Now, if you look at, I speak to many, I used to have, regardless of Ghana or regardless of Ethiopia or or Sudan, they all tell me for their breakfast, there's no fixation. It's not like us the world. You have to eat yogurts and oats, or perhaps OJ, or perhaps cereal. In their culture, they eat like bread, rice, or porridge, or whatever. There's no breaking grounds. The same as the Western world, we don't have any breaking grounds. But also, we many. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying there's a large numbers of people over there likes to have this. I like to call it the royal family mentality, or me. I like to say feel like king. You got to feel like king mentality, and also materialistic. I think Africa countries in Africa can be a similar phase like China, like have a big car or gold chains, or maybe they have different ways of material wise, but eat good, this and that. They believe in this sort of stuff, which China has strongly has believe in this area as well, and I think China has learned in a way there's a similarity, even though there many cities and tribes in certain countries in Africa has speak all different languages. But how do you unite them? One thing the China has a good image in Africa is because they never share the blood in that country. There's no war in the past in the history, so they're most likely to believe in a Chinaman instead of a white fella. A white fella has always a history behind. Has they made their country even better after the colonialism or when they fight for independence? That is up to you guys to think of. But what they're doing now with China, you know what? We've noticed war and blood is not going to make anything better. It's just going to deepen to hate. So what China did is exchange goods, right? You have gold, oil, diamonds, whatever, and we give you infrastructure. And this sort of mentality is more of like back in hunting and gathers society, right? You give me coal, you give me raw minerals, this and that. I'll give you whatever you want. And I think it was a New China News, is it? The New China News. I think that's the channel. And the way how China is building in many of these countries, especially one of them is I did not know about this, but apparently it's sort of like wrestling culture in South Sudan Sudan is a very big thing. So what China did, they built a stadium for it. The Western world wouldn't provide this sort of stuff. If they wanted lights, if they want electricity, everything stabilized, everything, China knows how to build that sort of infrastructure. Whether it's a good quality or bad quality, that is not up to me to explain that. But what they try to do is they made it happen. All right. Now, you guys know Akon the rapper. If it wasn't for China, $1 billion a deal to build this sort of Africa lights, there's no Western world who ever did that. It was actually funded from the Chinese company who brought lights, and many rappers who admire Akon, the rapper, who built lights. And where many Western world they try to do it, but not in a mass scale. They try to do it in like the rural tribal area and X, Y, and Z. All right, so you have that. The thing about the Western world, where at night, where you hear a lot of stories like woman gets raped or get killed at night. you do hear these sort of stories in little tribes or countryside in Africa, where there's no lights, and women when they go to toilet they get raped. And the main reason why when a woman get raped at night, I'm not saying it's a good thing or definitely it's a terrible thing, but it's a big slap on us guys, you know, big slap at all. Oh wow, my internet's so laggy when I said that. There's a big slap on the us guys where we should train ourselves not to behave like that and this and that, blah blah blah. Where that sort of mentality is very tribal, right? Women should be able to walk out the house, regardless if it's just a bra or just a mini skirt or things like that, should be walked home safely. Now, this is coming from the tribalism, where you see history that basically what human rights want us to do is to destroy every single bad social norm or event or our human animal energy inside of us. All right. Should you say yes before you have sex with a woman? All right. And I'm pretty sure a lot of relationship out there, the woman drives so hard when the guy does this and does that and turns them on. But when the moment you say, "Hey, miss, can I have, uh, do I have your consent to have sex tonight?" I'm just saying, there's a lot more than that. I'm just giving you guys what's like, all right? And also, one more thing, add on that. Why the hell 50 Shades of Grey outsold Harry Potter? Do you guys know about that? And the book is basically, well, as a guy, I only read the first book. Didn't quite understand what's the trigger the woman. But apparently, I've spoken to the females that I'm not saying females, but a girl that I kind of know, and she told me the secret. Woman secretly wanted the guy to rape them. And I don't know, is it for all women? I'm not saying it's good or bad, but sometimes they vision this guy to do on them. And she told me it's part of their uh, DNA. So don't question me. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but also you think about it. Why 50 Shades of Grey, this book, or this sort of, is outsold Harry Potter? That's below than Bible or religious book. So that's something that you need to think about. All right. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying I'm giving you facts that you guys can go and search it up. All right. Um, I think the China what they did, they study it very well, and I guess it's king mentality. I think the king mentality is very strong in countries in Africa and China. They love like big, lavish, big speakers, big cars, something like that. Like they don't want to go small, and there's corruption. Similar. People talk loud. We've got this very, very high patriarchal. When there's this, you see a lot of rappers when they talk about all this stuff. It's pretty much what's happening in China and Southeast Asia and countries in Africa. Like they have like a couple of hoes and sluts and whatever, and they have one night stands or whatever. This sort of behavior is always been like that in Asia and countries Africa, and maybe in South Africa if I'm South America. Sorry, they have that sort of mentality. So there's always been that culture, and if you talk to a white fella about this, they're like, "Oh no, 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 we don't do that." But when the moment they go to Bali and Thailand, they feel like king. What is king mentality? That's why a lot of people around the world, or men, or go to countries like Thailand or whatever. They want to hold around with two girls like that, one there and one here, and walk like a king, feel like a king, get massaged like a king, you know, fuck their brains out like a king. And I believe this sort of manlyhood behavior is very, very strong, represent in many agriculture, hunter-gatherer society. Um, and in a hunter-gatherer society, when the king or perhaps the leader has to find the strongest of the strongest, the most fittest girl, all right? But also he has a bit of like a side chick and he has a main chick. but he can get away because he's the strongest. He provides safety. He provides hunting. He provides everything for the tribe. Same as the king as well. Or nowadays, if you have to view it in that way, what is today equivalent to that? I'll have to say celebrities. Regardless, there's always scandals or baby scandals or sex scandals or cheating scandals or this and that with all the celebrities. They're feeling like a king. That's why I like to use the word king mentality. We like to eat like king, lavish lifestyle, big house, this and that. Whether you want to eat lobster or anything, or perhaps just want to have a good steak or this and that, or go to a restaurant, this and that. And I guess it's a very, very strong resemblance, culture, traditional. We came from having flocks of chickens and two cows and two sheep to marry to the girl that you love to now it's all about money, or perhaps you have assets or wealth, right? What can you bring to the family? It's not much difference, like some girls are more of that. Like I'm just saying, those who are strongly believing conservative loving style are more likely lean towards what can he bring to the family. It's all about materialistic, to be honest. Back then there was no money, so therefore having dozens of chickens and two cows can get you together married to the bride. But now you don't get to do that. Now China, for me, if I want to marry to a girl, all right, I'm just saying, just let's just say I don't have Australian citizen. Let's just put it that way, all right. Let's just say I'm a local Chinaman in local China. Mate, I have to go for a lot of hurdles, mate. I have to get like at least I have to have one house is to start off, or two houses, or perhaps you have like a good education. You're coming from a good family background. Your family background is not dysfunctional. You're not mental health or things like that, and your grandparents are good, and your face reading is good, your palm reading is good. We look very, very deep. And plus, countries in Africa, they believe in more of a bush medicine. We're Chinese, we believe in more of that Chinese herbal medicine. It's the same concept, but just different words. Maybe they use different herbs because they use two different geographic location. They use different stuff. And countries in Africa, they like to eat some different meat, maybe monkey, or maybe like like different meats, like different animals. Not us Western world. We like the fixation: cow, sheep, pig, chicken. Where over there is more diversity. So therefore, I would say the China model is more suitable for a lot of third world countries, and more and more countries will jump on board. I know I make this video like 23 minutes. I'll just show you what's the similarity. I think the social norm, the behavior, this and that, it all matters because your culture, tradition, and your religion remains the same. It's up to you guys how the government or dictator or regime, how they want to run their society. It fits the narrative. That's what I'm saying. All right. Why it's not ending?